Chapter 16, A Chip Off the Old Block. Once on the TV, this dude hypnotized a lobster. Maybe you saw it. He touches a lobster and it freezes. It can't move. That's sort of what happens to me when his hand clamps over my mouth, like I'm paralyzed, and my head is empty. And all there is in the world is that big hand and his cool breath like the wind. "So this is where the geezer stuck you, huh?" he whispers, down in the basement. Out of sight, out of mind. I still can't see his face. He's this huge shape in the room. "Everything changes now," he says. "It's time I got to know my own son, who had his mind poisoned against me." He makes me sit up and shushes me to make sure I won't make any noise. Making noise is the last thing I want to do, because I don't know whether or not Grim ever bought that gun he mentioned, or what might happen to him if he tries to use it. Graham's bad dream about Grim getting shot with his own gun seems pretty real right now, and I don't want to be the one to make it come true. "I know what they told you," he says. "It's all a big lie. You understand? I never killed anybody, and that's the truth, so help me God." By now I'm sitting up in the bed, and he's making me put on my clothes, and the weird thing is, none of this is a surprise. Somehow I always knew this would happen, that he would come for me in the night, that I would wake up to find him there, filling the room, and that I'd feel empty. I'm so weak, I can hardly put my shoes on, like when you wake up and your arm is still asleep and you can't hardly make it move. That's what I feel like all over, numb and prickly, and as light as a balloon, like my hands might float up in the air if I let them. "This'll be an adventure," he says. "You're gonna have the time of your life, boy. Okay, we're leaving, and not a peep out of you." The bulkhead door is open, and you can see the stars. Some people think the stars look close enough to touch, but Freak says the sky is like a photograph from 1 billion years ago. It's just some old movie they're showing up there, and lots of those stars have switched off by now. They're already dead, and what we're seeing is the rerun, which makes sense if you think about it. Someday, the rerun will come to an end, and you'll see all the stars start to flick off, like 1 billion little flames blown out by the wind. "This way," he says, quiet as a mouse. There's snow on the ground, not a lot, enough to cover the ground. I can tell how cold the air is, but I can't feel it, even without a jacket, which I didn't have time to put on. The cold doesn't matter. Nothing does, really. Not Grim and Graham, or the old stars in the sky, or Freak and the fair Gwen. They're all just make-believe. This dream I was having for a long time, and now I'm awake again, and he's still filling the room somehow, even though we're outside. The lights are out at Freak's house, and I'm thinking, the stars clicked off, and I don't even know why I'm thinking that. It's like a dead voice in my head or something. We're under a streetlight when he says, "Let me look at you." He's got these big eyebrows that make it hard to see his eyes, and that's fine. I don't want to see them. Looking at those eyes is asking to have a bad dream. My, he says, checking me out. "Will you look at this?" It's like I'm looking at an old picture of myself. You really are a chip off the old block. You know that? I don't say anything, and he reaches out and touches my face real gentle, as if he'd never hurt a fly. "I say, boy, do you know that? Answer me now." "Yes, sir," I say. "Everybody says so." "Christmas Eve," he says. "You know how many Christmas Eves I've been deprived of my own blood kin? Now is that fair, to do that to a man? Lock him up for a crime he never did?" He's waiting for me to answer, and I say, "No, sir, not fair." "That's over and done now," he says. "We're starting fresh. Just you and me, boy. That's how it was meant to be." I'm standing there under the streetlight, and it's amazing how quiet it is, like everybody went away or died. The quiet is almost as big as he is. He's as tall as me, only wider everywhere, and for some reason, maybe because we're not far from Freak's house, I'm thinking this weird thought. He doesn't need a suit of armor. No, and he doesn't need a horse or a lance or a pledge to the king or the love of a fair lady. He doesn't need anything except what he is. He's everything, all rolled into one, and no one can ever beat him, not even the brave Lancelot. He's squinting around, his eyebrows are furrowed shadows, and he says, "You know what I think of when I see a neighborhood like this? Hamsters is what I think. That's how these people live, like hamsters in cages. They have their little wheels to run on, and that's what they do for the whole of their lives. They run and get nowhere. They just spin. I stand there. They poison you against me. I know that, he says. Give it time. You'll see the truth. He starts walking fast, and I walk with him, like my feet already know where to go. We're cutting through the side streets and heading down to the pond, all cold and white and frozen. Tomorrow morning, a bunch of kids will take their new sleds and skates out there and probably lose their new mittens and scarves and get yelled at by their moms and dads. But tonight, the pond is as empty as the moon, as empty as my head. Once a car goes by real slow around the pond, and I've got this strange feeling there's no one at the wheel.